Oh, hello! I didn't see you there. I was just reading a New York Times bestseller. But I have a question for you. What does the police, the mafia, and the LGBT liberation movement have in common? That's right, we're talking about the Stonewall Riots today. I'm Chase Hirsch. This is Smash Semester History. Let's go. On June 28, 1969, the police raided the Stonewall Inn. The inn was owned by the mafia at the time and served all kinds of people, but was known to be especially popular with the poorest people of the gay community, like drag queens, transgender people, and gay homeless youth. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me set the scene. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, the FBI and police departments kept lists of known homosexuals, their preferred establishment, and friends. The post office would keep track of the addresses where items pertaining to homosexuality were mailed. State governments started to shut down bars that catered to homosexuals, and their customers were exposed in newspapers and put in jail. Cities started to do sweeps to remove homosexuals from parks, bars, beaches, and neighborhoods. They started passing laws that made it illegal to wear opposite genders' clothes. Universities expelled instructors rumored to be homosexual. Thousands of gay men and women were harassed physically, humiliated publicly, fired, jailed, and even institutionalized in mental hospitals. Then, in 1952, the American Psychiatric Association listed homosexuality as a mental disorder, where it would remain so until 1973. I'm getting off track here, so let's jump back to the riots. The Stonewall Inn, located in the Greenwich Village neighborhood of Manhattan, was one of few bars in the area that welcomed openly gay people in the 50s and 60s. Police raids of gay bars were commonplace in the 60s, but at the Stonewall, the police lost control of the situation fast. That morning at 1:20 a.m., Saturday, June 28, 1969, 4 police officers arrived. 2 patrol officers, Detective Charles Smith and Deputy Inspector Seymour Pines. They came up the doorsteps of the Stonewall Inn and knocked on its double doors announcing, "Police, we're taking the place." Stonewall employees later recall not being tipped off that a raid was going to occur that night, as was commonplace. Days later, one of the owners of the bar complained that the tip-off never came and that the raid was ordered by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, who ordered that there was no stamps on their liquor bottles, indicating that it was bootlegged liquor. Once the policemen were inside the bar, they called for backup on the bar's payphone. The music was turned off and the main lights were turned on. Approximately 205 people were in the bar that night. Customers that never were in a raid before were taken back. A few who knew what was happening ran for the doors and windows, but police barred them up. The raid didn't go as planned at all. Regular procedure was to line up customers and check their IDs, have female police officers take customers dressed as women to the bathroom to confirm their sex. If during the inspection it turned out you were a man dressed as a woman, you would have been arrested. That night, though, those dressed as women refused to go with the officers, then men in line began to refuse to show their ID. The police decided to take everyone there that night to the police station. After they separated those cross-dressing in a room in the back, one of the patrons, Maria Ritter, known to her family as Steve, tells, "My biggest fear was that I would be arrested. My second biggest fear was that my picture would be in a newspaper or on a television report in my mother's dress." The police were supposed to transport the bar's alcohol in patrol wagons. 28 cases of beer and 19 bottles of hard liquor were seized, but the patrol wagons hadn't arrived yet. The people who hadn't been put under arrest were released from the front door, but most didn't leave quickly. They stayed outside, and a crowd started to form to watch. Minutes later, 100 to 150 people had gathered outside. Some had been patrons from the bar, others were people who noticed the police cars and group of people. Pines recalled that when the first wagon arrived, the crowd was at least 10 times the number of people who had been arrested. Confusion over the radio had delayed the arrival of the second wagon. Police started to put mafia members into the first wagon as the crowd cheered. Then employees were put into the wagon. One bystander screamed, "Gay power!" Another sang, "We shall overcome." The crowd was a mix of humor and growing hostility. Then a rumor started to circulate about the crowd that a patron were being beaten inside the bar, and pennies and beer bottles started to fly at the wagon from the crowd. A small fight broke out when a woman being escorted to the wagon in handcuffs escaped repeated times and fought with 4 of the policemen, swearing and shouting for around 10 minutes. One witness claimed she was hit on the head with a baton for complaining that her handcuffs were too tight. Some people in the crowd recalled that a woman, whose identity remains unknown, ignited the crowd to fight when she looked bystanders and shouted, "Why don't you guys do something?" after an officer picked her up and put her in the back of a wagon. The crowd exploded and turned into a mob and went crazy. The police tried to restrain some of the rioters and ended up knocking a few people down, which only fueled the fire from the crowd. Some of the people handcuffed inside the wagon escaped when the police left them unattended. The crowd tried to push over the police wagon. 2 police cars in the wagon fled from the scene. The turmoil attracted more people that learned what was happening. Beer cans were being thrown and the police lashed out, which started to disperse some of the crowd, who would find a construction site nearby that had stacks of bricks. The police were outnumbered by between 500 to 600 people, so they decided to grab multiple people and barricade themselves inside the building with them. There were 10 police officers, including 2 policewomen, Garbage cans, garbage, bottles, rocks, and bricks were all hurled at the building, breaking the windows. A parking meter was uprooted and used as a battering ram to break down the doors of Stonewall. The mob started to light garbage on fire and stuff it through the newly broken windows. Police grabbed a water hose, but it didn't have any water pressure and only seemed to encourage the mob not disperse them. When the leader of the mob broke through the windows that had previously been covered with plywood by the owners to deter police away from the bar, the police pent up inside, unholstered their pistols, and doors flew open. The police pointed them at the crowd, threatening to shoot. Someone squirted lighter fluid into the bar, and as it was lit, the police took aim. The sirens could be heard, and fire trucks had arrived. The assault had lasted only 45 minutes. The police finally stopped the crowd, but not before they started singing and doing a kick line down the 7th Avenue. By 4 o'clock that morning, the streets were nearly clear. On that night, 13 people had been arrested, some of the people in the crowd were hospitalized, 4 police officers had been injured, and everything in the Stonewall Inn was broken. The immediate effects of the Stonewall Riots was that a formation of Gay Liberation Front, or GLF, with a goal to restructure American society. Then the Gay Activist Alliance was formed, and they worked to focus entirely on gay issues. The Constitution stated, "We, as liberated homosexuals activists, demand the freedom for expense of our dignity and values as human beings." The long-term effects are that they started the liberation movement for LGBT people in America. It was a rally call for equality. And I attribute the Stonewall Riots for the results of Oberfeld versus Hodges and the legalization of same-sex marriage. Oh, would you look at the time? I have to go, but I hope I taught you something you didn't know before. Until next time, goodbye now! Today. I'm Chase Hirsch, and this is Smash LGBT movement. I hate you, you're an idiot! The wagon escaped when the police left them unattended. I was doing so well too.